Hi there, I'm Florina.
And I'm Win.
And welcome to the Android Show. We're here at Google I/O, coming to you from the Shoreline Amphitheater in Mountain View, California, talking about the biggest Android announcements from...
Wait. I thought I/O was still going on right now.
It is, but that's why we're here. We're not just covering yesterday's news. We're bringing back the Android Fireside chat live from Google I/O with a supersized panel and sharing stories from the Android developer community.
That's right. Think of it like your halftime breakdown, your day 2 pre-party, your community-led code review, your...
They got the idea.
Oh, okay. Well, the point is, this is our opportunity to ask the Android team about all the things they just announced.
If you didn't catch I/O's Day 1 live, don't worry. We'll be recapping the highlights in just a minute, including the biggest announcements from Android.
And after that, stay tuned for the Fireside chat, where we'll be answering your questions on everything from Jetpack Compose, Android Studio, Android 13, Google Play, and more.
Exactly. So if you haven't already, now is your chance to join the conversation and get your question answered. Tweet us using #AskAndroid.
I can't wait to see what questions come up. Okay, let's get the show started. Up next is your 2-minute recap of the biggest news from I/O Day 1.
Oh, so then we have just enough time to rate the backstage snacks.
Oh, yes. Gummy worms, let's go.
Mic check, 1, 2, 3. Can you guys hear me? It's so great to be back.
Over the years, Android has grown into the most popular OS in the world. There are 3 big themes we're focused on. First, enabling you to do more with your phone at the center. Second, extending beyond the phone to all the forms of computing people love, like watches, tablets, and more. And third, making all your devices work better together to solve problems and help you throughout your day.
Let's zoom into wearables and large screens and talk about how we're making it easier for you to build these apps. Since the developer preview, we've added and improved a number of components, such as navigation, scaling lazy lists, input and gesture support, and much more.
This year, we are going big on large screens and tablets. With Android, you can build a single app that runs on a foldable, a tablet, and even on Chrome OS. And in Q1, we saw active users approaching 270 million on these devices. So there's a great opportunity to connect with people using larger screens.
Now, we kind of heard from you that's kind of a pain point to do iterative UI changes with Jetpack Compose. And at all costs, avoid doing full builds. So, something I'm excited to show you that solves this problem is Live Edit. Every developer I talk to says they never want to go back to XML once they've tried Compose. We're building on this growth and just released the beta of Compose 1.2, which has features such as downloadable fonts, nested scrolling interrupt, and more.
The fundamental thesis of the Android Privacy Sandbox is that protecting user privacy and enabling a healthy mobile ecosystem are not a zero-sum game, and that the path forward is innovation.
The team behind Google Maps for Android improved the app's startup time by 30% after introducing baseline profiles, a new way to improve app launch and hot code path performance.
We've been hard at work on building out a software stack to enable both platform-driven and developer-driven multi-device experiences, leveraging ultra-wideband, Bluetooth, and Wi-Fi.
Developers can use the Health Services API to collect real-time sensor data from Wear OS in a power-efficient way. Once collected, you can use Health Connect to store and share the data with other apps.
Another feature that is coming to Android 13 as part of the Camera API is HDR video. The APIs will provide apps with the ability to preview and capture through a common API that will allow them to use front and rear camera. The features will be available through both Camera 2 and Camera X.
But we know that we're not done. And in the last several months, we focused on adding features to support your most advanced use cases and making Compose as powerful as the view system, but way easier.
Are you still here? Why are you still here? Go watch the talks.
All right, so the secret's out. This year's I/O featured a new beta release for Compose and big updates for tablets and Wear OS. That means more ways for you to extend your app across more devices.
Ooh, but most importantly, it means we get free Wear OS watches.
I don't think that's how it works.
Come on. Who's a host got to talk to around here to get a free watch? If I'm going to be making Wear apps with Compose, I'm going to need a test device.
I'll add that to the Q&A.
Oh, is it Fireside chat time already? I wouldn't know.
Not quite, but it is your last chance to tweet us questions using #AskAndroid. This is going to be our biggest Fireside chat hit.
Oh, nice. Looks like they're getting set up right now. Oh, wait. Is there going to be a real fire?
Guess we'll find out. Coming up next, we'll hear from our friends at Airbnb about how they use Compose.
But first, I got to go behind the scenes with the team that built Compose for Wear OS, which just went to beta. Take a look. If you're like me, you might have been interested in wearables since Google first announced the initiative a number of years ago. Maybe you even played around with bringing your app to users' wrists. Frankly, back then, I found Wear apps cumbersome to build and the right use cases hard to nail down. So I was intrigued when last year at Google I/O, Google announced the launch of their joint Wear OS platform in partnership with Samsung. And since launching the joint platform, they've seen a huge increase in Wear OS watches. I was hoping to find out if it was easier to develop for now that they've released a purpose-built version of Compose for Wear OS. So I went and spoke with the team who built it.
Typically what we find is that developers who've already got existing applications on mobile are looking to reuse what they've already built. But often it's not that easy, and unfortunately we need to help them to kind of think differently about what they're doing. It's often an entirely different user journey. We need to help developers to build ways of giving quick access to information to help users live more present, healthy, and productive lives using their wearable. Early on, one of the things we recognized that we needed an alternative material library to use instead of the mobile material library. And there were a few things that kind of led us to that kind of early kind of discovery. We need to focus on the wearable form factor. And there are things like, we don't have a lot of elevations in our user interfaces. We want to encourage dark colors for battery life. The shapes and the fonts and things that we use need to be appropriate for the size and the form factor that we've got. So this is why building Compose for Wear OS was so important to us. We were really looking to do a couple of key things, and we kind of see this really as really giving two big steps forward to developers. So firstly, we wanted to introduce the modern Android development toolkit. We wanted Kotlin, we wanted Compose, we wanted the things that people are already getting familiar with on mobile, and that will give them great return on investment going forward. But the other key thing we wanted to achieve was really giving them a kind of out-of-the-box, great, kind of wear material design, look and feel, and a kind of natural way for them to build and design their apps that we got great consistency, but also something that worked and looked really good on a wearable with minimum input.
Of course, building for watches isn't the same as building for phones. For one, the interaction with the user is different. On the wrist, you're serving different surfaces, including glanceable notifications and tiles, so your users can easily get things done. But then, of course, the other big difference is the screen itself. Instead of the familiar rectangle, you've got a circle or a rectangle. And this shape presents some unique design needs.
Yeah, it really does. As you said, the nature of the devices, that whole round versus rectangular, means that some of the existing kind of patterns, tools, components, and approaches, they just won't work. So we needed to extend the foundation of Compose to add support for round devices, which make up the majority of the wearable devices shipped. And to do this, we needed to write a domain-specific language for kind of all these things curved. And in doing that, we found ourselves needing to kind of write that DSL. But the really great thing, and the kind of thing that was kind of like almost like joyful, is you kind of find yourself in a position where it's so easy to do that using Kotlin and working in that, in that style. We're building on things that people are going to be familiar with from what's happening in the core Compose libraries. So it really felt easy and natural for us to do that. And then building on that, Compose itself really makes it easy to build, code that works well on both devices. It's very easy to mix in the different things that you need to write something that's going to look great on those different device types, and also to be able to see what it's going to look like in real time using Android Studio and the capabilities and things that it has that lets us kind of see what we're going to get on those different surfaces kind of in real time.
What's a good example of a challenging task that Compose for Wear OS makes easier?
I think the scaling lazy column is a great example of this. So it's a wearable specific way to show lists. Lists are something that probably everyone uses in their application. It's a fisheye list component, and by that we mean that the items get smaller and more transparent as they move away from the center of the screen, helping to kind of focus the user's attention, right in the middle and helping them to get their tasks done more quickly.
To get Compose for Wear OS right, the team needed to make sure it worked well for developers. And so they built it in lockstep with developers, collecting their feedback along the way.
So we have been doing previews of Compose for Wear OS for a few months now, being fully transparent with the community and having a dedicated Slack channel where everyone could share any issues, learnings, or sentiment regarding Compose for Wear OS. We are really keen to see what developers are able to build with Compose. And for now, it's clear that they love the API, and many of them were excited to try early versions and give us feedback on what they need. One really interesting aspect we heard from the community was about the need for having various user input components, like pickers. On the watch, we have completely different patterns for the input because it usually doesn't involve the keyboard, and tiny screens require some nicer ways to capture users' input. So yeah, we're constantly relying on the feedback from the community and really appreciate all the input we have had so far. It helps us to improve the APIs and make Compose for Wear OS better, and hopefully equip developers with what they need to build beautiful apps on Wear OS.
So that's the latest with Compose for Wear OS that just went into beta at Google I/O. Check it out now, and be sure to let the team know what you think.
I'm Vinay Gaba, and I work as an engineer at Airbnb focused on Android. I work on a team that builds and maintains our UI infrastructure and design systems, and we aim to make our front-end engineering more efficient. Airbnb was born in 2007 and has since grown to over 4 million hosts that have welcomed over 1 billion guests across almost every country in the globe. Compose brings declarative-first development to Android and allows you to decouple the UI toolkit from the operating system, which makes it super easy to get improvements at a regular cadence. It reduces the amount of context switching a developer has to do, allows one to define UI in Kotlin, which is a developer favorite language, and really allows you to focus on building experiences that are unique. As we were thinking about adopting Compose, we wanted to make sure that we keep our host and guest community at the center of every decision. With the intuitive and powerful APIs for animation that Compose exposes, we were able to create unique experiences that really delight our users. In addition, because it requires significantly less code, we are able to keep our app size in check. This is super critical for our users that either use older devices or are in countries where data is super expensive. As an engineering organization, we've prioritized commitment to craft to focus on a couple things. First, we want to lay sound technical foundations that foster innovation across the organization. And second, we want to make sure that we empower our engineers with the right set of tools so that they can do the best work of their life. Compose enabled both these goals and continues to be a really critical part of our technical strategy. We are investing heavily in making sure all parts of our Android infrastructure can support Compose. Jetpack Compose will continue being a very critical pillar of how we build Android apps. Jetpack Compose allows you to test your UI in isolation and in a deterministic manner. This was something that wasn't always possible, and these are the efficiencies that Compose brings to our testing infrastructure. The biggest problem with testing is often flaky tests, and that has historically been a problem for us. With Compose, the tests are more deterministic because it gives you precise control of the test cloud. This also not only makes the test more reliable, but also allows you to test animations that we've never been able to do in the past. This gave us a lot more confidence about the testing that we were doing with our Android apps. Compose reduces the context switching and simplifies the development workflow for our engineers. It allows you to develop the same feature set with significantly less code. Less code also means relatively better build times, which are often the biggest pain point for any engineer. All these reasons were why we were excited about adopting Compose. It was really easy to introduce Compose in our code base. The intuitive, interoperable APIs that Compose exposes makes it trivial to use Compose in existing features without the need to actually rewrite or migrate screens to using Compose. So I started working on Android back in 2011, especially with the introduction of Compose. It's reignited my passion for Android.
Hey everybody, hope you enjoyed the previous content and the introductions and content from Florian and when Florian had to run to join us in the current session. Welcome to the Android Fireside Chat. We have a bunch of people on stage who will answer questions that we've had from Twitter. We're hopefully getting more live questions on the YouTube chat, and we have an in-studio audience here. Let's get going. I'm Chet Haas. I work on the Android engineering team. I work on the graphics side of things these days. And I think I've covered all the basics. Why don't we go down and find out who's here in the room with us?
I'm Romagui. I work on the Android Toolkit team.
I'm Diane Hackborn. I manage the increasingly poorly named Android framework team.
Sean McBreen. I'm a product lead for Toolkit, Large Screens, and Kotlin.
Hi, I'm Brian Karlstrom from the Android CoreOS team.
Hi, I'm Jay, a product manager on the Android Studio team.
I'm Dan Sandler. I work on the Android System UI team.
I'm Tone Irby. I work on Android Studio.
I'm Hannah Lee. I work on the App Safety team.
Florina Montanescu, working on Compose DevRel.
I'm Sarah Hamilton. I work on Ware DevRel.
I'm Meet Ware. I work on Android Jetpack.
All right, let's get going with the actual content here. So I'm going to start with some questions from Twitter. We asked out to the Twitterverse and said, hey, what would you like to know about Android? And some very random responses came back. The first one was a valid question we've had many times. It seemed worth talking about a little bit. It was, why did you get rid of the device dashboards? I really liked them. OK, they didn't say that. But OS versions, screen sizes, stuff like that. You can't rely on Play Console for apps that do not exist or don't resemble apps that you ship. Jamal?
Yeah, good question. You know, it causes lots of good questions across the ecosystem, but we wanted to focus the information right in context to developers. So we actually put all the information inside of Android Studio. So when we create a new project, we actually show you the dashboards and information. So that's where we put it. We update it with every major release. So that's where we put it.
I think one of the points of confusion might be that people didn't know where to look for that information anymore because they used to just go to that place and then it disappeared from there. So yes, it still exists. It's just not in the same place. We like moving the cheese occasionally. It makes it fun for everybody, doesn't it? OK, how about next? Maybe this is a Diane thing. What can I do about OEMs and the custom battery life optimizations? OK, this one's come up a lot in the last couple of years, which are breaking my app functionality.
Yes, so first of all, there is a talk on doing stuff in the background. One of the talks that will cover, actually, I think a lot of good information on this. And yes, we realize this has been an increasingly painful thing for app developers. It's a kind of a complicated area for us because, you know, unlike other platforms, Android is not like Google's operating system. The OEMs are by design have a lot of, can do a lot of customizations and innovation on the platform. So there's a lot of things we can't just tell them, force them to do. And in this area, this is something that OEMs really care about for their users, about battery life. And so this is an area where they do put a lot of effort into improving things. Sometimes improving things, for developers, a little bit too much. So we kind of have these ongoing discussions with OEMs about how to improve this. And there's actually been a lot of work over the years in the platform that we've done to try to address areas that OEMs have been improving things. So everything from, starting with job scheduler to doze mode to app standby, background execution limitations, activity starting limitations, new foreground service limitations. A lot of that has been driven by looking at where OEMs are seeing problems that their users experience around battery life and addressing them in the platform so that it can be common across all of the OEMs. And I know the things we've been doing there actually have been causing a lot of unhappiness for developers, but part of the reason for that is because it's better for us to do it in the platform in general rather than have OEMs go each do separate things. But yeah, so there's still, and OEMs are still doing a lot of stuff. We are constantly talking with our OEMs and doing work on reducing those changes that they make. And yeah, you'll see more in the future. And like I said, that talk should give you a lot of good information about what's currently happening and how to deal with things.
I think of this as like the flip side to the very large ecosystem. Like the fact that there's such a large ecosystem for developers and their apps to target means that those manufacturers have the ability to make their own decisions in different ways than a more controlled ecosystem would, right? So that's kind of the trade-off there.
Yeah, and we kind of, we actually have two ecosystems we deal with. There's the OEM ecosystem for us, and then there's the app ecosystem. And we kind of, OEMs shipping devices, the focus is really let's build the best device, and kind of like a shorter term, not in a negative way, but like focus on like battery life. Like we want to make the battery life as good as possible. And they tend to not be as focused on the app ecosystem. And so that is one of our roles in this is to keep the app ecosystem healthy for the long term. And so this is just like kind of this constant back and forth in negotiation with the OEMs about where we're going to be. And I do think right now things are too far in the way of like harming the app ecosystem, and we're working really hard to get that back into a better place.
Thanks. The next one is super important to me because someone's asking about animation. Can we expect to see even more animation APIs in Jetpack Compose in the future, or are we done? It's software. Nobody's ever done it in software.
So yes and no. No, we're still working on animation APIs. You've seen in one of the previous presentations, shared element transitions is still an experimental API, so we're working on that. In the view system, we were limited by the architecture of the view system itself, so there were many things that we wanted to improve on the animation front that we couldn't really do without breaking everything, and we don't like breaking your apps. So for us, Compose is a huge opportunity to give you much better animations. So we're only getting started, and of course, as usual, if you have feedback, if you have desires, let us know, and we'll see what we can do.
So I'm going to hop over to some of the live questions that have come in the meantime. So let's start with this one. Any idea what can go wrong? Oh, so many things. If we use Compose in our library as opposed to the app code. So an app is pulling in a library. The library has decided to use Compose. So a library which other developers are going to integrate inside their apps.
I think if you're adding Compose in your own library, then performance becomes even more important because you might end up creating performance problems to the users of your library. So actually, to help with performance, we have new performance docs on developer.android.com. There's also a talk at Google I/O on performance. And actually, part of Android Studio, I think Electric Eel, we've added recomposition, debugging, a recomposition count that tells you whether a composable has recomposed or not, like how many times, and whether it was skipped. So I would say that would be one of the first things I would check out.
Right, someone's asking about sort of large screen stuff. So we've been talking about it a lot recently. Sean, I think you did some of that stuff. Someone said, what is the difference with older Android versions on tablets and Android 13 on tablets? But I think the more general question is, what are we doing in recent releases to support large screen stuff?
Yeah, well, a lot is the good news. Starting in Android 12L, we really tried to make the operating system, make it easy to do multitasking, which with the large screen device makes so much sense. And the interesting thing about bringing multitasking front and center is it brings a whole host of these other changes we're doing to apps come front and center as well, like compatibility mode, like portrait and landscape layouts, like the ability to sort of rotate and force rotate apps into different shapes. So actually a lot is happening at the OS level, and I think that brings applications this opportunity to do things in a multitasking way. So that's why drag and drop is becoming so important now. And these new devices have amazing things like postures that you can work on as well. So it's the start of a journey, and it really does start with these big operating system updates that allow you to get large screen devices and maximize the affordances of the big screen. And that really comes down to multitasking.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah.
For Android developers, we have this new feature called Resizable Emulator. And the way that works is that we've created a special system image that is able to dynamically switch to different form factors. So it's not just scaling the screen up to the different sizes. It's actually, when you live switch from phone to, for example, tablet, it's going to switch the system navigation bar. So it's an OS feature plus emulator support. Requires Android 13, but it's a super fast way to quickly check how does this app look on a foldable, how does it look on a desktop, how does it look on a tablet, and your live app is running and reacting. And so definitely you want to try that.
If I can add something as well. We're also thinking about how can you migrate easily, how can you support large screens easily. So then one of the features that I really liked is activity embedding. So let's say that your app is activity-based, but then you want to have that nice list detail. Well, with activity embedding, you don't have to completely rewrite your UI or switch to Fragments or forced to switch to Compose, but rather you can use activity embedding to already easily do that nice, this detailed kind of support.
All right, so here's a fairly high-level question, and maybe multiple people have opinions on this. What's one thing that developers can do to increase the quality of their app? I think maybe I'll toss this out to Hannah to start.
Thanks, Chet. So one of the things that we're working on is for an average app on Google Play, about 80% of that code is actually SDK. So one of the first things we're trying to do is help developers make better choices or informed choices about the SDKs used, and I can talk a bit about that more, but that's Sdk Index.
That'd be great. So just to clarify what you mean by SDK, so this is apps pulling in other libraries as opposed to framework
third-party libraries, exactly.
Okay.
And so Sdk Index we just launched recently. It is a public listing of the top widely used commercial libraries in the Google Play ecosystem. There's information that you can use for safety and reliability, so information about the permissions that the SDK uses, the retention and usage across apps, as well as whether that SDK has chosen to engage with Google Play's policies. So we're very excited about this. And Sean, maybe you want to add more?
Yeah, well, I was going to say there's maybe two sides to the question. One is the quality, security, the reliability of your app is really important, and I think that helps talk to that. But another thing is like consistency in the user experience of the application as well. And one of the things we're really trying to do is take a lot of the initial cognitive load through working through what does it mean to have a high quality application across all these different form factors. And so we publish these quality guidelines, and they're really just designed as a way to give you a great starting point to when you think of my app, I need to think about keyboard shortcuts if I've got a productivity tablet, or I need to think about an unfolded gesture on a device. How does that look? So quality really comes in both of these two forms, making sure that the high quality code, highly reliable, highly secure application, and then something that's really consistent and really fun for the end users to use. And we're trying to approach it from both ends of that spectrum.
You should also fix your bugs.
What about ours?
Who invited you here?
I'll add something, the shameless plug, but please profile and benchmark. It used to be really hard on Android. Now we have the micro and macro benchmarking libraries. It's super easy to understand where things are going wrong. Like we internally use this a lot. It's how we measure Compose performance too. So try to, it's very easy to write those benchmarks. We take care of all the really difficult device problems. So add that, and then you'll thank yourself later.
And run lint. And in fact, lint is integrated with the Play Sdk Index. So,
I don't know if you're picking this up, but this is why it's good to introduce people at the beginning to get a little context. So you can each see them pitching their own personal things that they work on over time.
I didn't.
Draw a monochrome icon.
Thanks, Dan. All right, moving on. When are we going to have emojis like, I don't know, name of some other platform I'm not familiar with. Does anybody want to talk about the state of emojis?
Maybe I can start.
Great.
Maybe then afterwards you can help. So actually we are actively working on updating emojis. So I think starting with Android S, if I'm not mistaken, we are able to update emojis over the air. Actually, I think Unicode 14 is the last emoji set that we updated, and the melting face emoji, well, that's there now. Yeah. And then, of course, if you're an app developer, you can use the emoji library. Dan?
I would also just point out that Google is super involved in the Unicode consortium. Jennifer Daniel on the emoji subcommittee has a hand in drawing all of these emoji, and we bring them to Android as fast as we can, sometimes faster than other platforms. We also have black and white Noto emoji now in a font. It's amazing. Have you checked those out? They're really, really good.
All right. Let's see. I think this is probably a Tor or a Jamal thing over in the tooling area. Why does AVD not support Bluetooth connection for devs working on apps that require connecting to BLE device? Cannot use Android emulators for testing debugging.
It's a fantastic question. We actually just released a Canary version of Bluetooth in the emulator. So I know it's been a long-standing request. We just started. So basically, you can call and create your own virtual Bluetooth device, and call with an emulator, and pair two devices with a Bluetooth emulator. So pretty exciting. There's more work we can do, but we're definitely working on that area.
All right, different topic. Will Wear OS be updated to Android 12 or later, or just generally, what's the state of Wear OS releases?
Good question.
Yeah, so where is a fork of Big Android? I guess we should probably be called Small Android.
Big Android.
Big, yeah.
Oh,
We
okay.
always call
There's a new name.
Big Android is phones, but yeah. Where a fork, it's not one for one, but the plan is to keep updating the OS versions and keep bringing improvements to where schedule coming.
Android Classic.
Android Classic, yes. Right. yeah. A phone is very big compared to a watch, so.
Let's see. Here's one in the Compose area. Wish list for handling of forms. Is this on the Compose roadmap? Oh, I should have started with the ground rules. We don't really talk about future development. Sometimes we do, but in general, if you're asking when is this thing going to happen, we're probably going to not answer that question. But if we're comfortable taking this, yeah.
Can you repeat the question? When is what?
Forms. Support for handling forms as a generic UI element.
I don't know about forms.
Also, sometimes we don't have a good answer. So.
Or we don't understand the question.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know about forms, but speaking about whether we're announcing or how much are we talking about roadmap, well, when it comes to Compose, we do have our roadmap in general lines published. So do check it out on developer.tenor.com. So you are able to see kind of like what are we working on right now and what is next in focus for us.
All right.
Maybe I'll pile one thing on it. Say,
Yeah, go ahead.
there's a big opportunity for us to have higher level components than base level widgets. We're totally aware of that, and we talked about things like canonical layouts, which is the very top of that pyramid of layout components. But there's a big middle ground for building forms, building common components, and yeah, so we're aware of it, thinking about it. No timelines, nothing.
All right, thanks. I think this one is over to Jamal. Question is, live edit looks cool.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, wait, hang on. There's more.
Was that the question?
But how is it different than Instant Run from a few years ago? Instant Run had issues?
Well, so Instant Run tried to basically solve everything, right? We were basically going to always be able to live patch your application. With Live Edit, we have scoped it down to something very specific. It's for Compose. And because of that, we know Compose is not as stateful. We know where the state is. And so the difficulty we had with Instant Run was that apps would go ahead and put stuff into fields in their own classes. Why wouldn't they? And Instant Run didn't know, and then things would crash. With Live Edit, we are limiting ourselves to changes within method bodies. And with help of the compiler plugin, the Compose compiler plugin, and the Compose runtime, we're much more certain about what's going on, and so we're able to do live patching. But I want to sort of emphasize that it's still very much in preview, so we want your feedback. But it's pretty exciting. And I did also hear someone say, well, we've had this with XML, so this is a disadvantage of Compose. With XML, it was always live. Well, the difference is Live Edit doesn't just work for the preview, it works for your running app. So you can change your app logic. Right, and that's something that with XML you couldn't. You had very instant tweaking of the UI, but for your app logic you had to actually run. Well, now you can really iterate on the whole app logic in your running device, not just emulator even.
I like that Live Edit is, you said it's in preview? It's like very recursive
Alpha.
answer. Okay.
But it is in, it works
yeah,
on
go
the
ahead.
preview surface and the emulator, so they can both live edit at the same time.
All right. Cool. Okay, different topic. Probably Diane? Brian? Android team has historically been very supportive of up-and-coming CPU architectures. There was x86 support for a bit and even official MIPS builds for some reason. Speaking of which, why on earth was there ever official MIPS support? Who asked for that? I really don't understand this part of Android history.
You want to start or I can? So yeah, I think breaking it down, because there's a lot of stuff there. I think the first part, like x86 is the thing, and obviously that's something we support beyond like ARM, which is typical on phones because we have it for Studio, for emulator. We use it internally for developing the platform and apps. But it's also, x86 is behind Google playing games for PC. So like we are thinking about that. That is very much a living platform. And I think when we go back to MIPS and like other things, I remember like when I was starting on the team, like there was Super H support, if I remember, was that architecture, and like we've kind of cleaned that out from
Isn't
a
that
technical.
like a video recording technique? Super H. What?
Maybe I'm getting it wrong. It's like anyway, I won't even talk about the brands, but so I think we had a lot of open kind of contributions. We've kind of from a technical debt point of view removed like things like Super H when it was there, but MIPS was something. It was very much at one point alive. There was Google Play, and there were Google Play services and all the sort of usual things you would expect for MIPS devices. I don't know if Diane had more context on our MIPS adventures. Or MIPS.
I mean,
I almost
MIPS Adventures. Yeah. I know. I think there were some devices that are shipping MIPS. Like early on, we had a lot of people coming to us saying like, we want to ship Android on this like whatever thing, and and we were pretty open to we didn't really want to have Android be like lock into a particular hardware and stuff, and so we were pretty open to those things. And if someone wanted to ship something on some CPU, we would take contributions in for that. We realized during that actually supporting a CPU is actually a huge amount of work for both us and our app developers. And so kind of in the process of ARM kind of becoming the primary mobile CPU and those kind of falling away, and also kind of seeing how much the cost is, we really stopped backed off on a lot of those CPUs. And I think even Intel, we do support Intel today, but if you look at the state of applications with Intel code in them, it's not exactly great. Like it's often untested and stuff. So new CPU architectures are actually really, really costly for all of us, for us and you to introduce. So it was something that we were aggressive on early on, and we really changed our approach to that.
Yeah, I think I wanted to add. I mean, I think when I was looking at the Twitter comments, there was some discussion on RISC-V, and so I think it's something we have seen the enthusiasm out there. Again, more comes from those OEMs and not necessarily from the app developers asking usually. But it's something like we're paying attention to because it is something we think could be something in the future. But I think when, like Diane said, when we saw the cost of what it was for us to support MIPS and then turn it down, and we kind of do see some we are an open source operating system. We pull a lot of things from other teams. We start to see RISC-V support coming in the kernel and even V8 and some other things. So, it's something we're watching, but it would be a big change for us.
All right, thanks. So this on the educational side, I teach Android app development for beginners. Should I tell them Jetpack Compose first or tell them View System first? This question has come up on other new technologies or approaches we've taken, like changing languages before. What would the recommendation be to somebody starting out?
I'd say Compose. We actually released recently an Android basics training with Compose. So this is a training that's addressed to folks that have never done programming. So yeah, I definitely suggest checking it out.
All right, let's see. This is probably a Sarah question. With the rise of wearables, are there guides on how to make your app for wearables? Not only the UI with Compose, but also the other layers of the app.
A great question. Yes, so we have a bunch of guides. If you go on DAC, you'll see, and they're kind of themed. We have some stuff around media apps. We have things around health and fitness apps. And kind of the reason for this is that, the user journeys on where can be very specific, and there are a lot of different, you might need different APIs for each one, rather than kind of a general thing. So we have guides on both of those. We actually have a library called Horologist, which is on GitHub, which has a bunch of helpful features, especially for media apps, if you're interested in that. So I would recommend starting there, and something where nothing future promising, but we want to work on more guides around the kind of user journeys you should be thinking about when building Wear apps, because they do need to be kind of tailored and targeted specifically for the wrist.
Thanks. Another Compose app. Why all the Compose questions? If we adopt Compose, should we consider dropping Fragments? I assume they mean gone or not visible, especially if we use the same layouts on phone and tablets.
Compose works with or without Fragments. So I would say it's up to you. I think probably a good step would be to, in migration, is to keep Fragments, and then with time you decide. So actually on our Compose samples on GitHub, you have samples both just using one activity and the rest being composables. But also we have a sample, I think, Jet Survey that's using multiple fragments, so you can also see how that would look like.
Yeah, and in general, we do have a lot of guidance on our website, but I would like to remind everyone that do what's best for your application. So if you disagree with us, that's cool. If you don't want to use Fragments, that's fine. So we're happy to give you answers, right? But again, do what's best for your app, because we can't give an answer that's going to work best for everybody.
Also, it seems if they disagree with us, they yell at us on Twitter, right? That seems to be a common.
Oh, they do that anyway.
Yeah.
And Slack.
And
Reddit. And Stack Overflow. And email, and also in person.
I think some of those exist just for yelling at us.
Yeah, I feel very sad.
All right.
But ideally, they should be giving us their feedback on the issue tracker, because then we can directly address those issues, and we don't have to, change from yelling to an issue tracker. So
but they also yell at us in the issue tracker. So.
Yeah, that's all caps. Right. All right. Let's see. So this is a general question maybe for anybody in the panel that wants to take it. What Android API do you wish developers took more advantage of? Is there something that you think people should be using more of? Besides Compose, obviously, according to the questions. Maybe a little too general. We could think about that one.
Oh, maybe I can start?
Yep, please.
So it is related to Compose. One of the latest libraries that was released is window size classes. So if you're thinking about making your app work or respond well on large screens, the window size classes APIs would allow you to do that.
I'll say the new app search APIs, that we would really love app developers to start using those because it'll enable us to do a lot of cool stuff in the platform as we have more visibility into applications. And we're very excited about using that.
I think for me, one thing, just even when I'm working with my platform teams, we're talking about platform APIs, is we tend to tell people not to advocate so much to like get developers directly call your APIs and to think about the fact that developers have to like target older devices. So unless there's a very specific reason to like add value, like, you know, app search, like think about like how do you make this available through a Jetpack library that can work and kind of degrade gracefully when capabilities are there. And I think in like the media areas, I think we've tried to be successful there with like things like ExoPlayer, where like, you know, use ExoPlayer and then there are platform APIs underneath that like new capabilities get lit up, but focus on the high level, you know, Jetpack approach seems to be the best advice.
Yeah. And there is a Jetpack API for app search. And actually, you know, honestly, besides the benefit for the platform, I think it probably for a lot of the uses people make of SQLite, it probably is a much better solution for them.
Yeah, to state the obvious that everyone's already said, anything that starts with the word Jetpack. Camera X. Anyone working with camera, please use Camera X.
I would say one cool thing I like for that's studio specific is the preview API for Jetpack Compose. You know, many times you want to have a decomposition of your API and your UI, you can just preview that certain portion of it. So there's some great demos we have online, but like really take advantage of that. Instead of having that one screen to preview, you can have multiple smaller previews to really dig into your UI development.
Yeah, and that's an annotation, and we actually have a bunch of annotations, and that would be my advice, is use the Android X annotations to annotate your code, because once you do, you know, we can find more bugs, right? If someone is passing the wrong kind of integer value to a method that is declaring its valid range and things like that.
You're just giving the lint answer twice. That's unfair.
And I would add all the graphics APIs. Canvas. Canvas has been around since Android 1.0, and you can do amazing stuff with it. It was actually interesting. Once we released Jetpack Compose, I think we made it easier and more approachable to use Canvas, and I've seen the community create like beautiful things with it. And it's funny because, you know, it was great to see the excitement, but I was yelling for once I was yelling at you, but you didn't know. Because I'm like, you could have done this 15 years ago. We had the APIs already. I think that says something about us more than you. But anyway, yeah, you can do amazing things that, you know, don't have their place in default components. So I highly encourage you to look at, you know, Canvas and, you know, unleash your creativity.
All right, we're going to wrap this up. I have one more question. It's going to be a lightning round, though, if you can think of any. There was a question, after over a decade of Android, since we all know that naming is hard, what do you think is the worst name class or API? And the questioner, unfortunately, already grabbed Spinner, which is my most hated one. So I'm going to have to pick color matrix color filter because there's just too many words.
Hey, you picked... Also, I disagree about Spinner. We talked about this in a presentation, but there's a reason it's called Spinner.
Yeah, not anymore, though. Anybody?
I'm not convinced that we should be keeping on putting X's and 2's after the ends of our APIs. We've got a few of those.
So you're saying 3's?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's any class name or like method name where they can't decide about capitalization. Like it's you know, HTTP or all connection have this problem, or it's just like where it's like all uppercase and then lowercase, and you're trying to name your variable to sort of match, and yeah,
misshapen camel case.
Misshapen camel case. Yes.
Or MIPS shapen camel case. Yes.
I'd go with list view because that's not how I pronounce it. It's unprintable what I say when I'm trying to actually do with list view. We changed that name.
I think edit text should have been text field.
Anything else? Okay, and that's it. Those are the only problems that we have in the APIs. So isn't that nice? That is all we have for the live stream. For the folks joining online, thanks. And I think you're returning to other kind of content now. And thanks everybody on the panel.
It's about to get hot in this mug though. Come and get the deep caught in your lawn, yo. You been saying that I'm talking too much though, but these words just caught me a dog, so I'ma keep on talking. You shine, you stay fine often, not awkward. Keep cautious, stay working. Stay talking, it's like hey, you look so good, I wanna take you home today. Hey, said you look good, I wanna take you home today. You look so good, I wanna take you home today.
My name is Xiaonan Zhao. I work as a product manager at YouTube. You're probably familiar with YouTube. It allows you to see what the world is watching. You can watch the latest music videos, check out what's new in sports, gaming, fashion, beauty, news, and more. Subscribe to channels you love, create the content of your own, share with your friends, and importantly, do all of this across any device.
My name's Ed Palmer, and I'm an engineering manager at YouTube. So I got into coding because when I was a kid, I played a lot of video games, and I wanted to know how they worked. And so I just kept digging and digging, and eventually I found that there's always something more to learn when it comes to computers. Building for Android connects us to a range of different devices, everything from the most advanced foldables to the devices bringing millions of people onto the internet for the first time. With the Android OS APIs, we can ship one binary that targets this incredible range of devices.
We're excited about the opportunity to better serve our users' video viewing journey with the increased screen size of tablets. For example, they can enjoy the video while browsing what to watch next and engage with comments.
We've put a lot of effort into making sure that new features work just as great on tablets as they do on phones.
We have been looking at opportunities that the bigger screen that tablet offers to better serve our users' video journeys. For example, how should they enjoy a short video? How should the video watching experience be on a foldable device? We wanted to make sure that YouTube journeys work well across all devices. We have seen a breakout in Android tablets. In fact, Google has seen 30% more people starting using Android tablets last year than the year before. With the opportunity to better serve our users on YouTube and the growth, it's a no-brainer for us to invest in tablets.
We want to make sure that the YouTube experience looks great on foldable phones. So we use the Jetpack Window Manager library to figure out where the hinge is so we can position the video player above it. This makes YouTube look great in tabletop mode. It's important that no matter how you're holding your phone or tablet, that YouTube looks great. So we make sure that the page is laid out properly to take advantage of whatever screen size that there is.
Thinking through how page layout should work on a larger screen is something that we worked hard on, especially to make sure that YouTube performs well on landscape mode.
We've seen a huge return on investment for our work with tablets and foldables, and we encourage other developers to take a look as well.
Thanks for hanging out with us backstage at I/O for the Android Show.
Going behind the scenes on I/O updates while we're behind the scenes at I/O.
Pretty cool, right?
So we're wrapped up here, but we'll keep the conversation going on Twitter. See you there.
Well, looks like we better get out of here.
Okay, you hop on and I'll push.
Okay. See you at the next Android Show.